I'd like to bring up my colleague, Sunil Potti.
So I was actually in Philadelphia with Karen and Sudesh. Sudesh, where are you? Lift your hand. Sudesh is our head of sales. He's probably still in the nightclub from last night. But and it was Tuesday or Wednesday morning, and then we were actually with our sales guy, Mark Zlotnikov, later in the day at a law firm, and then we get this call from Karen saying, look, we need some help, we have these problems, can you help us out? And I remember clearly even today, because we came through. She was live on her VDI user base by Monday morning or sometime. She actually corrected me last night. She said it was Sunday. But we also, I remember that Sudesh and I said, well, we're in Philly. We've seen some customers. Let's do the things that are famous in Philly, which is we ate some cheesesteak, and then we ran up the Rocky Steps, by the way, believe it or not. For a second, I was like thinking whether they'd show us that video, because I think both of us had to almost be taken to the ER after that. So complex is competent, but simple is genius. This is a saying that we really believe in inside Nutanix. It was, I believe, said by Vinny, our chief architect. And I think, I personally did not appreciate what this means until I've seen the products myself, seen how we design it, see how we have actually stopped products to be shipped at the expense of keeping things simple. And hopefully you guys will get a sneak peek of some of the things that, had already been released, but also coming out to kind of hold the bar on what we mean by simple is genius. So we're definitely in a large journey here. I think, as you'll find out, hopefully by the end of the presentation today, which, by the way, I do have a lot of slides. I'm going to make up for the rest of the lack of slides in the first half of this keynote. So hopefully you've had not too much water before the conference started. But we'll try to go through it as soon as possible. So this particular journey actually already exists in products that are out there with Amazon, Google, and Azure, right? And if you look at the design point powering some of these public clouds, everybody talks about, in our vernacular, it's called as Webscale Engineering and consumer-grade design. But if you really simplify it, what does it come down to? They allow you to start quickly, they allow you to start small, and they allow you to scale forever, okay? Those are three important things to get going, right? Look at what Karen said. We allowed her to get going within 64 hours in an enterprise IT infrastructure environment, from the point of a phone call to point of go live. I don't think I've worked in a company that have built products that have allowed enterprise IT to actually do that. So those are the kinds of things, I think, as we start on the next phase of beyond hyperconvergence, I think these are the kinds of things that'll keep us differentiated and sustainable over the next 5 to 10 years. So when you think through what's actually happening because of those two drivers is that every layer in the data center is now being re-platformed, not reinvented, re-platformed. It's a pretty strong word. We believe in this word, essentially, that it's from the storage layer, the compute layer, to the virtualization layer, all the way abstracted out to the user building apps to be deployed on the IT infrastructure stack is going to be re-platformed. And that's really our mission here, is around our journey towards invisible infrastructure is broken down into 3 phases. Clearly, we've well passed the phase of simplifying and commoditizing storage and compute in what we used to traditionally call as hyperconvergence. So what we're going to be talking to you guys about is about the next couple of phases that the company is embarking on, which is elevating it to the virtualization, the hypervisor, and virtualization management layer, as well as then eventually abstracting the entire stack, because we have to up-level the overall abstraction construct to the data center level, from whether it be your private cloud or extending to the hybrid cloud aspects. So before we get into the virtualization and the cloud aspects of our roadmap, let's spend a few minutes on what has actually happened on the product strategy. So everybody knows about a Nutanix operating system. It powers the distributed file system built into it with quick, easy to deploy capabilities around Prism. What we have now done, and it's our great pleasure to essentially take the next step in the evolution where beyond focusing on storage and on aspects of virtualization, we are now announcing a next generation platform that subsumes the Nutanix operating system, what we are calling as the Xtreme Computing Platform, Nutanix XCP. And Nutanix XCP consists of two primary products, Acropolis and Prism. And we're going to be spending quite a bit of time double-clicking into these products. And hopefully for the rest of the conference, you'll be able to actually see the technologies in play and so forth. We will actually have some demos as well. If the demo gods allow it, we can actually go through all the details. And hopefully that'll give you guys a perspective of how we are taking this journey over the next decade or so, because these are going to be foundational products that will evolve over the upcoming years. So before we get into the higher layers of the journey here, let's spend some time on even the core, the meat and potatoes product, which is around simplifying compute and storage. And if you think about it, we used to call it the Nutanix distributed file system. And as you will see it, we are now elevating it to a distributed storage fabric. Obviously, it embodies all the fundamental capabilities of web scale, self-healing, and simple deployment. But beyond that substrate, we are actually now sort of building in functionality that we believe will make it the de facto platform for all your virtual workloads. And before I get into some of those features, let me spend a few minutes about where we have come from in terms of the workload and the use case transition. So if you think about the industry, circa 2011, that's when our first product came out. Most of the workloads were in the bare metal construct or the virtualized constructs. And our first workload that we really moved in substance was VDI. It was perfect. Why was it perfect? I came from Citrix. We used to have Zen Desktop deployed, obviously substantially across the globe. But between Zen Desktop and VMware View, most of the customers that wanted VDI realized that after they bought 5,000 desktops or 10,000 desktops, that the dollar per desktop was significant when compared to using the full stack of the SAN and the appropriate compute capacity. So to really now solve that problem, all you needed to do was to buy a 2U box from Nutanix and get going on 500 users, and then scale from there. Essentially the same things that I mentioned about the public cloud. Start quickly, start small, scale forever. And that was the birth of Nutanix in a big way. And over the years, obviously, we've added Hyper-V functionality that allowed us to actually scale into the Microsoft applications in a big way, like Exchange and so forth. Then eventually, over the last year, in fact, even 6 to 9 months ago, we've even moved Oracle RAC as is onto a Nutanix fabric. So we're there. And in fact, some of the sessions that we have go into some of these large-scale OLTP workloads to actually see how Nutanix as a platform is supporting those. So here we are. So today, I can tell you, this is our fundamental belief is, a couple of years ago, people used to ask the question, well, if I'm virtualizing something, why should I be using hyperconverged? Why should I be using Webscale? Today, we believe that the question is, why not Webscale for all virtual workloads? Okay? So with that, what we have done since our 4.1 release, which shipped in Jan, that many of you hopefully have already started using. By the way, this is the first company in my experience where we put a release out there, and within the first day, almost 20% of our customers download the software release, by the way. Unheard of, at least in my career, because we would actually take 6 to 9 months to get to 15% adoption of a new major release. And so many of you have probably seen some of these features, but I'm going to recap a little bit, but also give you, a sneak peek into what's coming in our 4.5 release, which is shipping in calendar Q3, as well as the next release after that in calendar Q4. And the starting point of all of this is this fundamental thing that we have changed in our fabric. So if you think about Nutanix a couple of years ago, great single homogeneous Lego building block, right? Compute storage, as Bob said, he could get some workloads on it, but then he would have to, quote unquote, buy extra boxes with potentially unused storage because the storage comes along with that compute capacity, right? And in fact, many of our competitors, rightfully, the Bricks of the world and so forth, would actually look at this and say, look, well, you can't actually configure a storage-heavy capability on Nutanix because then you have to buy extra compute when you don't need it. And in the last year and a half, though, we have evolved our fundamental design construct to go from lockstep scaling to independent scaling. We have actually made the Nutanix fabric completely heterogeneous in terms of the knobs that you can dial on the storage side as well as the compute side. And you will see a whole series of technology announcements later today, tomorrow, as well as some of the things that I'll talk about that have actually made this real, okay? The second thing that we have done as part of this fundamental change to the substrate architecture was we used to have fixed hardware platforms, right? The 3000 series, the 6000 series, and so forth for specific workloads, such as VDI, such as server virtualization, or SQL Server, and so forth, spread across compute-heavy, storage-heavy, or IOPS, right? Obviously, that limited us to a certain amount of surface area. There's a lot of blank space there. That's the other thing that we have done beyond going from homogeneous architectures to heterogeneous architectures is we have now unleashed a new innovation in our manufacturing and operations process of delivering platforms that we call as configure to order, where each of our workload deployments, the customers and partners can choose with fine grain the memory, the compute, the disk, and the flash aspects of what is needed for that particular workload. And that allows a widespread range of options from a workload specificity to be mapped to a particular platform architecture. And if you think about it, this is not too different than what Amazon's doing, right? When Amazon came out in 2009, they had one EC2 instance or two types of EC2 instances. Just go to their marketplace today. They have a variety of EC2 types of instances varying for different kinds of workloads. What we have done is essentially the same level of flexibility, but then associated with that, we inherit the burden of complexity. And in classic Nutanix fashion, we solve that up front. So what we now have is, in addition to having configure to order, we have introduced a new Nutanix sizer tool. This sizer tool essentially embodies all the algorithms from our deployments, from our internal validation solutions lab, to actually incorporate and take in a variety of requirements, such as here's a Zen desktop workload, here's an Exchange workload, here's the hardware or the software additions, and spits out the appropriate configurations for that particular type of workload. And then it's mapped to the specific platforms and spits out the actual bill of materials that are required for you to deliver the configure to order process for that particular platform. This is a first in the web-scale industry. In fact, I don't even know if this exists in the non-web-scale industry, but this by far raises the bar in terms of what we mean by delivering infrastructure that is flexible but simple to consume. So those are the two foundational constructs, right? We've made it heterogeneous, and we've made it very fine-grained, but wrapped it with a highly, simple and easy-to-consume interface to apply it across all workloads. So from the lower left to the top right, high-end OLTP. And if anything, the one thing that we have seen in the last 6 months is the primary workloads that have started moving are these workloads. High-end SQL, high-end Exchange, and high-end Oracle. And one of the things that we are now announcing is that beyond leveraging the all-flash capabilities, beyond leveraging all the performance improvements that have come into the product since 4.1 release in January, we now have new functionality called as flash pinning, which essentially delivers predictable Oracle-like high-end performance in a hybrid cluster, essentially delivering greater than 100,000 IOPS in a single 2U node deployment. This actually, you can actually, when you run the test, you'll find out that this is as good as it gets, even when compared to an all-flash array that other vendors have started announcing. But the difference is you can actually run this while you're also using the 6035C as an extension of the same cluster and the classic Nutanix heterogeneous fabric, okay? So this is high-end Oracle OLTP support. And now when you think about mainstream deployments such as Exchange, we have actually been quite successful with a lot of Exchange deployments. But the fundamental thing that Microsoft recommends is to actually enable Exchange on iSCSI, not NFS. This was a huge undertaking from Nutanix. We are proud to announce that we have now unleashed native iSCSI MPIO support for Exchange running on ESX nodes. This is available in tech preview today, right? And look, we already have customers. You'll see this in a few sessions. We have customers deploying 30,000 mailboxes in the Nutanix fabric in production today. So hopefully this will pretty much create a groundswell movement so that every Exchange deployment out there that's virtualized on ESX or even Hyper-V can come over to the Nutanix fabric. So this is an example of workload-specific optimizations, right? And over the past 2 years, we've spent a lot of time, in the traditional storage industry. You guys have all seen, the classic optimization technology around deduplication emerge. We have done that. We have spent a lot of time making sure it works robustly, but with high efficacy in a scale-out fabric, which is not easy. We've also, and that, by the way, applies to certain workloads, like VDI, for example, or file servers. We've obviously implemented compression technology in a scale-out fashion, and that applies to workloads such as OLTP. At the end of the day, if you think about it, these optimizations are extremely non-deterministic and workload-specific. And so we took a holistic look back, and we said, look, just like classic Nutanix fashion, how do we raise the bar? How do we rechange the game again in terms of fundamental innovation in storage optimization technology? And if you look at the legacy of how people have done this, whether it's NetApp or EMC or RAID DP, which has come out 15 years ago, the optimization technology was based on the design point being physical disks. Well, we don't live in that world anymore. And someone else has already taken that leap forward. If you look at Azure, if you look at Google, they've implemented a next-generation erasure coding technology already. It took us over 2 years to build ECX. Essentially, a next-generation erasure coding algorithm that is patent-pending in terms of its math that goes into it to deliver the efficacy of about 75% of raw is now usable. And the surface area of workload that it now addresses with erasure coding is now almost all of your workloads. This is now workload-independent storage optimization technology. It's highly deterministic, and there's a whole detailed session on this, but we believe that this will fundamentally change the way that you will turn on storage optimization technologies inside our core substrate. So this is an example of how Nutanix, even beyond going up the stack, we have now added a lot more functionality into how you better manage a scale-out storage substrate. So if you look, put all of these together, I think between ECX, native multi-protocol support, the sizer, configure to order, and all that good stuff, we truly believe that we are ready to support all virtual workloads from a deployment perspective. So that's the wave of what one would think of, like if people are, as you guys might realize, everybody and their dog is in the hyperconverged industry these days. We've already moved past that in terms of the foundational technology. But beyond that, I think the part that we've started building on, many of you have already tasted a little bit of this, is that we are now abstracting the hypervisor and the visualization management layers. And this is just the first step. And let's give you a peek into what some of the things that we're doing. So if you think about why are we doing this? As people deploy virtualization technology, most of it was built for the legacy era. Very valuable, as Howard pointed out, but the design point was the last three-tier architecture. And with it comes virtualization tax, VTax. And VTax is not necessarily just a financial burden. It's also an architectural burden, right? It's complex. It was built for a different era. Obviously, it has a level of lock-in, depending on the vendor that you choose. But the most significant burden that it imposes as a tax is the fact that you don't use it. Almost many of our deployments, whether it be VDI licenses or server virtualization licenses, end up being underutilized as shelfware, okay? So we took a hard look at this. Obviously, a lot of our customers that have adopted Nutanix over the last 4 years pushed us into this, frankly. Essentially, what we are now doing, and this is a groundbreaking event for us, frankly, is on top of the DSF, we are now unleashing a full-blown application mobility fabric across a multi-hyper environment. What this product does, as part of the Acropolis product family, allows workloads to be unlocked from the hypervisor. We'll go into some of the details. Essentially, choose any runtime, but also migrate from one runtime to another runtime with no forklift. And on top of this, of course, we have enhanced Prism to encompass the full range of functionality that's required to bring that simplicity capability. Many of you guys know about Prism one-click upgrade. I'll tell you a story. When I first joined Nutanix, the second week, I was up in the state of Washington meeting the CIO, and one of the Nutanix champions there, who was an architect, already deploying some Nutanix nodes. It was a small deployment, about 9 or 10 nodes. And he was in the room, and he was helping me articulate the value proposition to the CIO for a broader deployment. And then he goes, look, he interjects in the middle, and he goes, look, remember those days when you and I, we've been here for 25 years in the IT industry, and he was telling the CIO, look, remember those days where we would call our family and say, look, the storage admin, the networking admin, the compute admin, everybody has to get together for the weekend to do an order management upgrade. He says, well, last Thursday, 3 p.m., we did an order management upgrade on Nutanix. It finished at 3:08 p.m. That same power is what we're bringing across not just upgrades, but provisioning of VMs, planning of your capacity, and remediation. And you'll see some of this. What we mean by that is this is different than management, right? We're not talking management here, right? We're talking about the core data plane being smart enough so that you can actually provide one-click capabilities. And then, obviously, as we unleash application mobility fabric, we need a landing point. What is our 1.0 capabilities? And this is manifested in the Acropolis hypervisor. Essentially, what we have done is that we have taken the KVM constructs and made it work. We have replaced the storage substrate in it. We've replaced the management substrate around it so that it actually can become one-click capable, and enhanced a whole set of functions around security and all, while inheriting the widespread use of it in terms of performance as well as open source and so forth. And with a combination of Acropolis now taking care of the storage fabric, the application mobility fabric, and now a native hypervisor as the starting point, we believe that this is going to be transformational from the way that somebody deploys VMs going forward. And we'll give you a taste of it. One of the other things that the application mobility fabric has, by the way, is security by design. Now, we all know, given all the issues that have been going on, this is a top of mind. This, I would highly recommend that you actually go and spend some time in our security sessions, because this is something that, while we want to make security invisible, you really have to understand what we have done in the core product to actually make this work. We have self-healing, salt stack-based capabilities that will automatically detect if you're deviating or drifting from your baselines to autocorrect. We have forensics management built into the product. There's a whole series of functionality that we believe that will elevate this to be a security, high-end, enterprise-grade deployment. So putting all of this together, is a big task. Obviously, we can't do it alone. So most of our integrations are still available natively inside an OpenStack deployment or a vCenter deployment, or a MSVMM deployment. So to some extent, all the APIs that are exposed from an AMF and a DSF are as REST APIs that can be consumed in any of these existing tools. So with that, what I'd like to do is actually show you a bit of the product. And to do that, let me invite our own version of Steve Ballmer on stage, Rajiv, head of engineering.
What a great crowd.
And Rajiv already knows, clearly this is way off script already, right? So Rajiv has promised that he's going to do the Steve Ballmer monkey dance, assuming the demo goes well, and Dheeraj is holding him accountable to that, right? In fact, Dheeraj might join him on stage too, by the way. We'll see how it goes, depending on the demo. No pressure.
That would require a lot of output.
Okay, what do we have?
Okay, so this is
we do have monkeys already in the product.
Yeah, right.
You'll get to it.
We'll get to it.
Yeah, I'm already off script, sorry.
Yeah, and also going very long.
Yeah. Keep going.
So this is our new Prism Central UI, and it's coming from it's from a forthcoming version. This is not what's shipping yet, but you'll notice a couple of differences from what we ship today. So what we have today in Prism Central is a great deal of very valuable data is presented on the landing page, but it's not contextual. The layout of the tiles is fairly static, and in this new version, what we have done is made the system much more reactive to what's going on, provided more contextual information, and let you focus on things that you need to do and act on right away. So things like, do you have any alerts? Are any of your services degraded at any given time? What your storage runway looks like, any performance issues, and so on. Now, this is a fairly healthy cluster. Everything is running very, very well over here, so everybody is happy, and we don't have to take any immediate action on a need-to-do basis. But need-to-do exception-based workflows is one way of doing things. Sometimes I know what I want to do, and I just need to do it, right? And this usually has a fairly steep learning curve for most systems, because you have to figure out, you have to find how to do things, and finding things in complex navigation hierarchies is hard. But it's a solved problem. Finding things is a solved problem. What do you do when you need to find stuff, Sunil?
Search.
Search, exactly. That's essentially been the paradigm for us to look for things in our everyday lives. And that's what we're bringing front and center to Prism. We're going to make search the go-to place for you to do anything you want. So I can search, for example, for VMs. And as you can see, it gives me back a certain set of VMs. It tells me what actions I can perform on them, and so on. But even more interestingly, we have created the ability to group VMs into applications so that you can act on entire applications at a time rather than single VMs. And that's much more useful as a unit of abstraction, right? In this particular case, I have a few applications running in this environment, Oracle, Exchange, etc. I have a few actions that I can create, that I can do on them. No alerts, as we said, it's a healthy system, and then some knowledge-based articles that deal with applications as well. Let's drill down a little bit into one of these applications. Let's go into Oracle. As you can see, this particular Oracle application consists of 3 separate VMs. And the information you see is essentially aggregated across those 3 VMs. So there's an average CPU usage across all the 3 VMs, IOPS, bandwidth, etc. And you talked about one-click troubleshooting earlier, Sunil. So let's see if we can do that right now. I see a bit of a latency spike here a few hours ago, and I want to see what's happening over there. And I can take this graph, I can add it to my analysis page, and it becomes pretty obvious right away that this particular spike correlated with an event that happened at about the same time. And as you can see over here on the right, what actually happened was one of the nodes failed. So a couple of things that become very obvious, very easy to obviously find out what the cause of the problem is, but also that speaks to the self-healing capabilities of the system. An entire node failed. We had a momentary blip in the latency, but the system recovered and has been running well since then. So speaks to the power of the self-healing infrastructure that we have. So let's just pause for a minute and draw a parallel that we use quite often internally within engineering, and that is to look at the evolution of other products, how they have evolved. And one that we take a great deal of inspiration from is Google, both in the infrastructure itself, but also in the way the design elements of Google are presented. If you think about Google, it started as a plain search interface early on. But as they evolved, they needed to add more applications. They added Gmail, they added calendaring. And as the applications proliferated, the need arose for a unifying framework for all of this, right? And that was Google Now.
And Google Now, by the way, beyond just unification, actually is an intelligent state of being.
Absolutely. So Google essentially is contextual. It knows what you're doing. It knows what your lifestyle looks like and reacts to all of that. And that's essentially the direction we want to take Prism in as well. So that's a very quick overview of some of the new capabilities in terms of how we navigate through the interface.
So we got events, we got search. What else do we have as part of the Google Now interface?
So when we go to the new interface, the other thing you want to do is to manage various entities that you have. So entities like services, the applications you're running, clusters, VMs, and hosts. And let's look at our VMs on this system. There's a whole bunch of them running already. So I might want to, do some grouping. So I group them by, say, the host they're running on. I can add colors to distinguish between various attributes. So let me color them by power state. So the red VMs are powered off. The green ones are powered on. And one thing you'll notice right away is that some of these nodes are running ESXi. Some of them are running the Acropolis hypervisor. And one over here is actually running Hyper-V. So what we're adding to Prism is the capability to manage multiple hypervisors all in the same cluster. So that's a new capability. I can also look at this view in various different ways. The table view is kind of an intermediate view. If I want more detail on each individual VM, I have a tile-based view, so you can look at a little bit more attributes of each particular VM. But sometimes I just want to visualize a whole bunch of VMs together. If I have a very large-scale environment, I want an overview of everything that's going on. And the circles view is pretty good for that. So we'll use that for the rest of this demo. So how many of you noticed a button here for creating a VM? That's new, right? We haven't had the ability to create a VM before. So let's go ahead and do that. Let's do it on the Atlas cluster.
And this is all part of the new application mobility fabric, which is a bunch of functions around VM management, provisioning, planning, and remediation.
Right. So we give it a name. We create a disk for it. I have some options. I can allocate a brand new disk. I can also clone from an existing file or an image service. For the purposes of this demo, let's just allocate a brand new disk for it. 20 gigs seems like a good size. And we also have...
You were going to go say something? Or should I interrupt? Per the script, I'm supposed to say something right now.
Interrupt.
OK, what is that nick, by the way? Yeah. What's the nick there? Yeah.
OK. Right. So one of the things we've added to Prism is the ability to not just manage compute and storage for you, but also networking. So this is optional. You can either manage your networks yourself, or you can choose to offload this to Acropolis. And what it does is gives you the capability to create network segments, which may be based on VLANs or VXLANs or whatever your favorite technology is for SDN, and also manage the IP addresses for you. So we can do IP pools and do DHCP and all that stuff.
I mean, I don't know if you guys got it, guys. This is Nutanix's first step into abstracting out the network as well.
Right.
You'll see more about that later.
That's pretty much it. I've basically given the attributes I care about to this VM, so I'll just go ahead and save it. And that's pretty much it. The VM's been created. Let's focus the search on that one VM, so we can focus on it for a few minutes. And the first thing you probably want to do is to turn this VM on, right? So let's power it on. Pretty quick operation. It's just a single VM powering on. And any second now, there you go. It's powered on. Let's go to the console to make sure that's happened. And when we created this VM, remember, we allocated a disk for it, but we didn't actually put an operating system on the disk. So this boots into a Nutanix BIOS, which has a nice little 2048 game. If you have nothing else to do, you can always do that.
Next, if we really do our job of delivering some of the functions that we're talking about in the roadmap, then most of our keynotes over the next few years will be more about the games that you'll be playing with rather than the
Right,
features.
right. Yeah. Sudesh keeps complaining about the pace of development, but he doesn't actually take into account how much time it takes to create these games.
Yeah. And no wonder our quality group is such a high quality group.
Right.
Yeah.
Lots of QA.
Yeah.
Anyway, so just again, just pause for a bit and look at what we just did. So essentially, we now have a system. It's running a bunch of VMs. These represent some applications, Exchange, Oracle. And one of the things that you might want to do is to scale out one of these applications, right? So you want to add more VMs, say, to Exchange. You just did an M&A, a whole bunch of new users came on. You need to create a whole bunch of new VMs quickly. So I want to show you how easy it is to create a whole bunch of VMs. What we'll do is that we'll take this VM we just created, and we'll create some clones. So let's go ahead and clone it, give it a name. So let's call it next group. And how many VMs should we create, Sunil?
50 million.
50 million, OK. Well, if you can do 50 million on 4 hosts, you got to rethink your business model a little bit if you do that. Yeah. So,
We are, like Maurice wanted, we are competitively priced.
Very competitively priced.
Nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, right. We have a total addressable market of
You can join us for the monkey dance pretty soon, Maurice, right?
OK, how about 100, right? Let's create 100 VMs. And how long do you think that should take? 100 VMs?
I don't know I forgot what the script said.
Well, while you were talking, they actually all got created. So we have 100 new VMs all ready to go. Let's go ahead and select all of them. And right now, live, we'll power them all on. So classic Bootstorm scenario. We have 100 VMs. We're powering them all on together. They'll all go access their VM DKs, all start booting up, all simultaneously. Every VDI administrator's nightmare, right? You can see that's already started happening. One thing you may have noticed earlier is that when I created the VMs, they didn't get a host. We, by default, don't assign a host to a VM. It's not pinned to a particular host. You can do that if you want, but a powered-off VM doesn't have to have a host. As they power on, we're going to assign them to the host that has the least amount of load to it. So we take care of the scheduling for you. And as you see, they're coming up at a pretty quick rate now. In the meantime, though, Sunil, you may have noticed we got an alert, right? So let's go look at what happened there. Let's go look at the alert. We're running out of disk capacity. Well, that kind of makes sense. We added a whole bunch of new VMs. So disk capacity probably will become a problem.
This is a new view.
This is a new view. So this is our brand new capacity planner, and what it shows is how storage has been trending for the last few weeks. Takes into account recent actions like creating VMs and so on, and then builds a model for how long of a runway you have with storage. In this case, we are down to only 28 days of runway. We go beyond that, though. So we've detected that you only have 28 days. What should I do about it? The system actually helps you with the remediation as well by giving you recommendations. In this particular case, it says we can either add another node, and that node would be a 6035C. That makes sense. We ran out of storage, and we need a storage-heavy node. By the way, that recommendation comes from the same sizer tool that Sunil talked about. We use the same backend algorithms for this as well. I can also remove dead VMs, or VMs that I've not used for a while. We can get rid of that. But let's just go ahead and expand this cluster live. And we'll select the cluster. This is all old stuff. This is stuff you've seen before. We will auto-detect what nodes are available on the network, ready to add to the cluster. And just by sheer coincidence, I happen to have a 6035C node, ready to go. It's just absolutely.
So far, so good.
So far, so good.
So far, so good.
So let's go ahead and expand the cluster right now. This is stuff you've used to. It happens very, very quickly. It's already happened. And as you can see, my runway is now about a year. I'm in a good state, right? So in the meantime, while we were going through all that, all my VMs are powered on. You can see they're about evenly distributed between the two Acropolis hypervisor nodes I had, 48 on one, 53 on the other. All looks good. So again, just to recap what we did, we live added another node to this cluster. As we speak, storage is being rebalanced so that the new node gets storage, but it's already available for VMs to start sending traffic to and so on. Just one more thing. I think we created all these VMs. They're all Acropolis hypervisor VMs. I have only 2 nodes that run the Acropolis hypervisor. And you may have noticed before I had this one ESX node that was kind of idle. What if we could convert that node to the Acropolis hypervisor right now? Let's try doing that. Let's go to the host view. I select this node, which I remember had only one VM on it. And I say convert. And I have a choice. I can either convert to Acropolis or to Microsoft Hyper-V. It's right. Acropolis hypervisor. Press OK. And that literally is it.
So what are the steps that go into it?
Right. So lots of stuff going on. So we first prepared the system to boot into the Acropolis hypervisor instead of ESX. We have to transfer the Acropolis hypervisor image over. We lay down the bits for that. And then we actually have to prepare the user VMs to run on Acropolis instead of ESX. So that means powering them down. We essentially then convert the file format, which is just some metadata changes. We don't actually have to go through the data itself. Finally, we inject the right drivers. And the last step is rebooting the system, which takes the most amount of time. It takes about a couple of minutes, so probably we won't get time to do that. But literally, when the system comes back up, the system is running Acropolis, the UVMs will come back up, and we are done. So, we don't have 2 minutes today.
There's one-click conversion from ESX to our target hypervisor environments, such as Acropolis or Hyper-V.
Exactly. And like while we were speaking, all the first 4 steps have finished. We're in the reboot right now, a couple of minutes away from this being an Acropolis node.
Great stuff, man.
Thanks,
Great
man.
stuff.
Awesome.
Great stuff.
Good luck.
So Dheeraj, should we do the dance or no? Right now? Let's do it. Let's do it, Maurice. Come on. Let's do it, man. Dheeraj, come on. Dheeraj.
Let's do it.
Rajiv, come back up. Come back up.
I'll follow you, dude.
All right, actually, Dheeraj knows how to do the dance.
Yeah, Steve Ballmer.
Right, Steve Ballmer. Come on, come on. Whoa, 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 whoa. Wait, you didn't do that?
Great.
You left us hanging in.
Thank you.
Okay, I think we should stop the keynote right now. All right? Well, thanks, Maurice, for not dancing. All right? I thought the Dutch were always good dancers, man. What's up? Maybe tonight. Maybe tonight. Okay. I've actually forgotten what the rest of the slides are now, but yes. So we have been shipping the Acropolis hypervisor and the Acropolis AMF, actually, since 4.1. We have not announced it. Many of you might already have been using it. We know as a fact, because many of our customers have started deploying on our AMF fabric with the KVM hypervisor. And one of the best customers, actually, that's deployed it and has a few words to say on it, just to give you guys an idea, is Swisslos. Play the video.
My name is Joris Vifrey. I'm in charge of the network and system management team at Swisslos, a Swiss lottery based in Basel. We are selling traditional lotteries, instant tickets, sport bettings, horse races. We have almost 6,000 point of sales in Switzerland. 3,000 of them are online, connected to our data centers. And we also have our own internet platform with almost 600,000 online users as well. We are making 1 million Swiss francs profits each day, so it doesn't allow us in the IT to have downtimes or have performance losses, because we wouldn't have happy customers. Gaming transaction shouldn't take more than 20 seconds from the logon until the tickets are registered. Our IT department is pretty small here at Swisslos. You have to optimize things and find solutions that are making your job easier, to be able to concentrate on the important. And the important is not the hardware or the hypervisor, the important is the customer. What we wanted to do with Nutanix was to simplify the management of our virtual machines, the management of the infrastructure, but also to be able to deploy new products on our platform. So we had some end-of-life servers and storage that we wanted to replace, and we wanted to look at the future and have a solution that's ready for the future in our data center. we picked up 4 solutions that we wanted to test. We wanted to run a full Linux stack with Linux VMs running on a Linux hypervisor, and it was important for us to have an integrated solution and also a solution to manage the VM in KVM. And that's what we found in Acropolis from Nutanix. It was the only one that was supporting the KVM hypervisor in an hyperconverged solution out of the box. With Nutanix, we reduced the cost, for example, of Linux subscription by 50%, and also the cost of the whole solution. You don't have to spend money, as I said, on complicated storage. You can scale your storage and your computing all in one global system. Also, an important point is the performance of the solution. Those transactions we were running in 1 second or half a second are running now in 2 or 3 milliseconds. When you install Nutanix, you can just forget it after that. It's the base of your infrastructure. You can build your applications on it, but it's like the invisible man, you know. You just install it and forget it, and it's working for you in the background, doing the job it should, and you can forget it and concentrate on the important stuff.
So that was, the first wave of how we are actually making virtualization invisible. And one of the things we're also proud to announce is that not only is the first instantiation on the Acropolis hypervisor, but pretty soon we'll be announcing availability of the AMF fabric on Hyper-V as well, as a native first-class citizen inside the Acropolis fabric. So in terms of the last phase, one thing to mention, though, is that we've actually bundled in a bunch of the Acropolis functions in stealth mode, quote unquote, under the Nutanix Community Edition. I know some of you guys have actually used it, but as of today, it's now publicly available. In the last month that it's been out, it's already been registered about 3,200, and I think Howard thinks that we're going to break 5,000 by the end of this week. So essentially, the full power of the Nutanix fabric for 4 nodes is available now in the Nutanix Community Edition, and we believe this will not just disrupt the way that Webscale is consumed, but it will keep us honest. It will give us access to use cases and design patterns that we wouldn't normally touch in the normal sales process. So we're really looking forward to the adoption around the Community Edition. So on to the last phase. And the last phase, obviously, is around up-leveling the construct to actually ensure that the overall data center fabric can be abstracted out. So you can actually pick and choose which data centers do you actually want to deploy within a few minutes, without having to worry about the various stacks and the layers below a data center construct, whether it be Azure, Amazon, and so forth. And to really think about that, let's just think about this for a second. And I think some of this was mentioned by Ravi and Vinod in the panel, was that when you think about an enterprise company like Nutanix, we're selling enterprise infrastructure. And people always ask us this question. It's a great company, great product, but aren't you going against some headwinds? And the headwinds being the public cloud. Because if the users are going outside because of consumerization, and the apps are going outside because of SaaS or cloud, why is infrastructure still inside? And that's a secular question that people ask of us. And we honestly believe, and if you've internalized some of the key points from the discussion that Dheeraj had with Ravi and Vinod, I think some of this is already obvious, but this is how we've actually converted public cloud from a headwind to a tailwind. Because if you really double-click into the adoption of public cloud, a lot of the workloads that are well-suited for the public cloud, and we know this, are elastic workloads, burstable workloads, and so forth, right? And you just have to be honest and ask yourself the question, if I'm an enterprise, a mainstream enterprise, how many of my workloads are predictable versus elastic? And frankly, Ray did a phenomenal job, especially speaking without slides, which wouldn't have worked for me, by the way, at all, Ray. But great job on that. But I think the points were even more visceral when verbalized correctly is that, look, you have to be practical about the transition in enterprise from mode 1 to mode 2, but whatever the mix, there's still going to be a heavy set of predictable applications out there. And we believe that that's 50% or 70% or 80%, that's going to be the predominant set of applications that power the enterprise. So why are folks concerned about that infrastructure moving to the public cloud. It's not security. It's not regulation. Sure, there are important considerations, but the moment Amazon lands a data center in Germany, you think regulation is really going to be a big deal, right? So things like that eventually will reduce friction of adoption of the public cloud. The simple fact is that public cloud should be more expensive, a lot more expensive than your private cloud, but it isn't. And that's why I think there's this inner inertia to actually consider, like, why is public cloud not happening to actually create a zero-sum game where everything moves to public cloud. And the reason why this is the case is that for most of your predictable workloads, not elastic, for predictable workloads, the cost structure today is based on various layers of the stack. You pay for the hypervisor layer, you pay for the virtualization management layer, you pay for the compute layer, the storage fabric layer, the storage arrays. So when you add all that up, it's, the cost economics delta doesn't become as obvious. So the only way this will become real is if you can take the power of what really powers Amazon and Azure and you embrace it in the entire building block stack of the enterprise. That's the only long-term solution here, right? Because the math actually is in our favor. You go rent a hotel in Hawaii for 5 days, of course, it's cheaper to rent. You go stay for 6 months, you probably lease. But if you stay for 5, 10 years, obviously the math says you got to buy. So that's what we're enabling, and that's our long-term opportunity. So Nutanix's end game is to be the A block for the enterprise. Essentially give you the power of Amazon and Azure, the same design construct, but enabled in an enterprise consumption fabric, but do it in a way that's just not a private cloud silo, but an environment that you can actually leverage Amazon or Azure on demand for the elastic workloads that we've talked about, okay? And essentially, what we are also now announcing on top, and this is now functionality that's coming in the next 6 months, is the ability to leverage the application mobility fabric across any hypervisor to Amazon or Azure and building in container functionality as a first-class citizen inside Acropolis, okay? And this is going to be a lot of interesting new functionality that's going to be coming out in the next 3 months, 6 months, 9 months. There's a fast run rate in the roadmap. Some of this you'll get a sneak peek of if you go to the secret demo room and so forth. But to give you guys an idea of what we're doing, what's actually going to ship in the next 3 months versus what's coming in the next 6 months, is our chief architect, Vinny. And Vinny, don't worry, no dancing for your section, right? Okay, so what do we have?
Yeah, these are a couple of bleeding-edge technologies that we have been working on. I'm happy to showcase them today. So essentially, what Rajiv has shown us that the Nutanix XCP expands to cover multiple hypervisors, multiple heterogeneous hardware environments, and supports all workloads that you have, right? Now, imagine you had a business user who wanted to rapidly expand the footprint of one of their applications, and you didn't have space or the fortunate 6035C in your data center. So wouldn't it be nice if you could actually expand XCP to cover the public cloud as well and spill over there?
And these are functions like DR, backup, and eventually vMotion directly into
Yeah, I mean,
Amazon.
you can do DR, backup, of course, but also migrate the workloads, clone and migrate whenever you want to.
Cool.
And move them back,
let's see it.
right? So let me show you what I mean. Go to my console here. You can select any virtual machine and hit on the migrate button, right?
And these are all, again, functions in the AMF fabric, by the way.
Yeah. And so currently, this virtual machine is running on ESXi. And we give you the option of migrating from ESXi to Acropolis Hypervisor. You can go to Microsoft Hyper-V on-prem. Or we have added the features to enable migrating this virtual machine to the public cloud, like Microsoft Azure and Amazon Web Services. Let's try Amazon Web Services today and hit submit.
So what's actually happening?
So right now, it takes a snapshot of the virtual machine and then starts replicating the data using WAN optimization techniques. We have our controller running on the cloud side as well, and that makes it very efficient. And then after that, it will hydrate EBS volumes, create an EC2 instance, attach it and make the VM appear.
So essentially, we have created a Nutanix node mapped as a first-class citizen on the AWS constructs like EBS.
Right. Actually, yeah. So it acts like a Nutanix cluster on the cloud, and you're migrating VMs between the two sites. So this is going to take a couple of minutes. It's already done 3 phases. Let me move on to the next one that I wanted to talk about. Right. So these days, there are a lot of developers, including myself, getting really excited about containers and developing applications using containers. So what we're doing is, of course, using our laptops and desktops and doing dev and test with containers. Right? But from the IT admin's perspective, that's creating yet another silo that they have to manage. So again, wouldn't it be nice if Nutanix XCP could expand and embrace the world of containers as well? Right?
So you can deploy containers either on the Nutanix Fabric, on-prem, or on a public cloud environment.
Yeah, so I mean, containers would be distributed across 3 different environments. Like it could be bare metal, like my laptop or desktop, or it could be on Nutanix platform or in the public cloud. Cool. Let me show you.
Yeah.
So let's, while this migration is happening, let's move to this console. Here I have 3 container machines. Now, container machines are where containers will run, right? So on the far side, we have a VM running on Azure. It's running CoreOS, and that's the OS on which containers run. In the middle is my own desktop. It's bare metal. And on this side, I have a VM running on Nutanix that's also running CoreOS, and you can run containers there, right? So what I want to show you is, if you so choose, how can you create containers across this diverse environment, all from Prism?
Sure.
Right? So you just go to containers and say, I want to create a container. Let me create a web service and give it a bunch of instances. I want to run HTTP daemon there. Say 1 compute share, 100 megabytes of memory, and I hit save. So what happens?
So essentially, now containers have been created in the AMF as if you were creating VMs.
Yeah, and the user experience is extremely seamless. It's extremely fast. Let me go to the circles view. You already see 20 containers have been created. Let me group them by the host. So you can see they're load balanced across multiple, the hardware types, the virtual machines in Azure and Nutanix. Let me color them so you can see them better with the color state. So right now, they're all powered off. Let me select all of them and then hit start. So this is going to start the containers. And just in a matter of less than a second, all these containers are powered on. Now, let me end up with showing you some details of one of these containers. So this container is running on Azure, and I'll go and look at the details. As you can see, it's running on Azure, and here's the favorite developer's console. And also, I can click on performance, and this gives you real-time statistics coming from the Azure VM into Prism Central on-prem, and you're getting a view of the container.
It's great stuff, man. Great stuff. Thank you.
Thank you.
So AWS DR and HA, as you might know, with backup already shipping, DR and migration will come out in Q3. Azure support will come out in Q4. And containers is in plan for the roadmap in the next 6 months. So you'll hear more about it in the container session if you can go to that. So if you look at this entire next generation platform that we have, we'll talk about it when they actually change the slides here. OK. So look, this is it. This is the foundation for the next phase of our journey, right? Hyperconvergence was the rest stop. We are way beyond it, as Dheeraj was talking about. As you can see, we've started with some functionality on the Acropolis hypervisor. We're going to extend it to Hyper-V. We've built some functionality on AWS and Azure. And you'll see a whole lot more functionality going into the container world. Essentially, the spirit is that, look, applications should be a lot more decoupled from the hypervisor fabric. And by trying to solve this problem, not the old-fashioned way, right? We didn't build open management tools or something like that that would do migration and conversion. We solved the hard problems. Again, what Vinod and Ravi were talking about, solving hard problems. At the crux of it is what makes great companies. And really, the hard problem here was to decouple the state from the hypervisor error, right? So that you can free the applications then to use any runtime. And that's what I think we've started doing. It's by no means complete. We'll look forward to a lot of engagement from you guys to actually iterate on this. As I mentioned, like Swiss laws and so forth, we already have a lot of rapid adoption of the Acropolis stack, and we're looking forward to a lot more such engagements. And if you think about our support that we currently have now, it's across the fabric, right? So all the way from hardware across Dell, Supermicro. Dell's a great partner that we've had. We've had great success. Hopefully, we'll do a lot more in the next decade or so with them. But we're also looking at next-generation runtimes like Docker and CoreOS, who are great partners for us, elevating that to the Windows fabric as well as the Linux fabric, and then all the way to the applications. At the end of the day, that's what matters. And there's a whole slew of applications and technologies that are now embracing Acropolis, all the way from Citrix to F5. You can see Avaya there, of course, a bunch of Microsoft apps and so forth. But the foundational partner that has signed up with us on this journey towards invisible infrastructure is Microsoft. And it's my great pleasure to invite Vijay Tiwari on board. He's the head of Azure Engineering to speak a little bit about our product.
So I think a lot of promotions are happening right now. I don't actually run Azure Engineering, but it sounds like...
hey, by the way, you're not going to do the Steve Ballmer dance.
No, I'm not. Thank you so much, Sunil, for having us here. And as Vinod pointed out, it's really exciting to be a participant in this conference, where you have so many conferences. And I truly believe that I haven't seen a conference, first user conference, with so many people here. I'd like to really talk about the meaningful partnership that Microsoft and Nutanix have been able to create over the last year or so. About a year back, we actually partnered with Nutanix to build a Microsoft Private Cloud Fast Track program. I think which builds upon the success that Nutanix has had with the customers, as well as Microsoft Hyper-V. You had some deep integration with System Center. And you also have a great PowerShell toolkit. In fact, I was playing around with it a couple of days back, and it's really impressive and follows your mantra about simplicity to the hilt. So really appreciate all the work you're doing there.
In fact, we've had a lot of success with a bunch of customers already over the last year and so forth. And one of the facts that I'll share with you is like some of these customers actually deployed on Hyper-V with Nutanix. Essentially, they had the same performance characteristics as ESXi, but at 20 to 30% of the cost, right? So clearly, that's making a dent in terms of the adoption of Hyper-V in the Nutanix fabric. I'll give you a fact, which is over the last quarter-over-quarter growth, Hyper-V adoption in our base grew 72%.
Wow, that's fantastic.
Right?
And with due acknowledgement to the Silicon Valley, they show your Wiseman scores are off the chart.
Yeah, absolutely.
So we also want to talk about a future partnership. We've partnered greatly in the past, and we're going to continue to partner closely with Nutanix as you build out your AMF and the distributed storage fabric. Our customers continue to ask about deeper integration between Microsoft and Nutanix, and we're going to work towards making it simpler for you to be able to pre-ship appliances with Hyper-V on top of it. You already talked about the migration capabilities from ESX to Hyper-V. And you're going to ship DR capabilities into Azure and Hyper-V. So we really appreciate the partnership. And congratulations and all the best for your event.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for the support. I mean, with friends like Microsoft and obviously a whole bunch of other partners that are on the slide before this, we feel really confident. Where we stand, we've come a long way, as some of the founders have talked about. And hyperconverged has been a rest stop. For sure, we're way past it. And look, we're on this journey. We're glad that we are where we are, but we're also very confident and upbeat about the journey ahead. We're confident because of our core technology. We're confident because of our product. We're obviously confident because of our market position. But the biggest confidence comes from people, our employees, you folks, the customers, and the partners that we believe are truly extensions to the Nutanix family. If there's one thing that we really want to do is keep that family going. And through the ups and downs that Dheeraj was talking about that we'll go through, I think this is what will keep and make us to be the next iconic company in the enterprise IT space. And as we look at that, if you think about it, look, I think 10 years from now, you look back and you say, look, June 2015, Fontainebleau Hotel, I was there. Just like people will look back on the first Java 1 conference, I was there. I look back on it very fondly, even in terms of the seminal change that it brought over to the programming industry. I think similarly, people do that for the first VMware or the first AWS reInvent. I think people will do that for Nutanix's .next. And we are very privileged. I think we'll continue to stay honest and humble and hungry, and hope to really engage with you guys over the next few days and the upcoming years to take it to the next level. So with that, thank you all. Make sure you attend at least some of the sessions, and have fun. Have fun. That's the most interesting, okay?
This concludes our Day 1 keynote. Please make your way to breakouts, which will now begin promptly at 11:15. We'll be repeating popular Acropolis and Prism sessions 3 times. Don't forget to complete your session surveys in the mobile app. We'll be awarding prizes to active participants. As a reminder, lunch and coffee breaks will be in the Technology Showcase. Finally, don't miss our amazing reception tonight at the fabulous Live nightclub.